Ahoy everybody! Today we are ranking every single season of SpongeBob, because believe me, there is a huge range to the quality. I mean, somehow the same show that birthed Krusty Towers also shot out the Splinter. So we're gonna need to approach this scientifically. The main metric we'll use is how many S tier and A tier episodes each season gives us, because otherwise, most seasons will just plop into C tier because of the mid episodes. This is gonna be fun. And bear in mind, this is ultimately my personal take on the series, and I absolutely invite you to share your own takes and whether you agree or disagree with my opinions in the comments below. Without further ado, let's get rolling with it. Kicking off our list today, we got Season 1. This is SpongeBob from 1999 to 2001. I'm thinking this season was absolutely stacked with great episodes, utterly entertaining throughout, and made Bikini Bottom feel truly like an actual place. In fact, this season had the best world building of the entire show. Checking out S-Class episodes, we got a full deck with episodes like Pizza Delivery, SB129, ARG, Rock Bottom. The list goes on, and I love how each episode has such a distinctly different identity from the next. We have pirate adventures, space exploration, a scary town, and new mainstay characters added throughout the whole season. On top of great world building, a major Season 1 strong point is the characters, since they feel like actual people more so than in later seasons. Even by Season 2, the characters started getting mad Flanderized. And overall, I think this is where SpongeBob himself, Mr. Krabs, and Patrick peaked since they had the most depth and humor overall. Animation-wise, this season is pretty divisive. While I can appreciate the rougher, hand-drawn charm of the animation, I gotta say that Season 2 definitely upped the game animation-wise, since the saturation it locked in on ended up becoming the iconic SpongeBob look. And looking at the season critically beyond animation, I gotta point out there are a couple weaker episodes. I don't really like Nature Pants and Home Sweet Pineapple since they're not as funny or memorable plot-wise. But overall for Season 1, there are way more great episodes than bad episodes. Season 1 set the gold standard, no doubt, but a few weaker episodes and rougher animation hold it back from being considered the true peak of SpongeBob. I think it belongs in high A tier, legendary, but not quite untouchable. Moving on, so while Season 1 may have laid the SpongeBob foundation, Season 2 is the golden mansion on top of it. This is peak SpongeBob. Just an absolutely stacked roster of S-tier episodes. Dying for Pie, Squidville, Christmas Who, Shanghai, Graveyard Shift. So many freaking S-tier episodes. Heck, even the A-tier episodes are super plentiful and make up the majority of the rest of the season. Season 2 is where the writers had the killer combo of plenty of fresh ideas and a fully realized style for SpongeBob humor. Between the peak writing and the fact that we're only looking at a couple of duds between I'm with Stupid, Dumped, and Gary Takes a Bath, it's no wonder that this season is regarded so highly by fans. And the crazy thing is, even the duds are only really duds relative to the season they're in. The writers were on absolute fire here, and the whole thing just felt utterly inspired, down to the smallest of details. And though the Bikini Bottomites themselves began feeling a bit more harsh in the season compared to the last, Bikini Bottom still genuinely feels like a warm place here, and honestly, their sarcasm kinda makes for a worthy trade. Match all this with the fact that the season overhauled and completely upgraded the animation style for the show, and I can't help but just shove this season into the peak of our list in S tier. Alright, next up after Season 2, we got Season 3, Dadoy. Season 3 is many people's favorite season, and for good reason. It held on to the momentum of Season 2 and cranked out classic after classic. This season is so quotable. Whenever I quote SpongeBob with friends, it feels like half the lines come from this season. Now let's check out the S-tier lineup. We got Snowball Effect, Chocolate with Nuts, Krusty Krab training video, Wet Painters. There are plenty in here overall, but I think that Season 2 has a bit more. I think that Season 3 has got to be the most consistent season in the whole series, since the whole thing is basically A tier and S tier episodes with a few B tier episodes sprinkled in. Beyond consistency, its greatest unique strength is how they explored the range of the characters. Using Born Again Krabs as an example, we see SpongeBob willing to bet his life on Mr. Krabs doing the right thing, only to have that trust completely shattered. We see the conflict in Mr. Krabs after making such a bad decision, and the moral compass of Squidward whenever he stands up for SpongeBob, even though he probably would prefer he goes away. I truly believe that Season 3 accomplished something special by leaning more towards character development. It may be that Season 1 had the most charm and Season 2 had the best comedy, but Season 3 had the strongest emotional depth and consistency in execution. That critical balance of humor, heart, and quality locks it in as an easy S tier, but it's still one step behind Season 2 because ultimately Season 2 did have more S tier episodes. Moving Moving on, Season 4 is a tough season to rank because on one hand, yeah, there are less S-tier episodes and a lot more dud episodes, but I will die on the hill that this season gets overhated on. But admittedly, I think it only really has 2 S-tier episodes. Have You Seen This Snail and Krusty Towers. Looking at these two, Have You Seen This Snail takes the emotional depth we've become accustomed to from Season 3 and cranks it up to an unmatched level. And Krusty Towers rivals the funniest Season 2 episodes comedy-wise. But beyond these two standout episodes, we mostly just got C-tier episodes and other mid-ranks here and there. Looking at the worst episode, All That Glitters, we see a horrible F-tier episode that spends half the dang time crying. It's definitely the lowest point in the whole season, but many of the other bad Season 4 episodes are bad less because they're off-putting per se, but rather because they're boring. This definitely served as foreshadowing for what mid-episodes we would see down the line in SpongeBob. But thankfully, A-tier episodes like New Leaf also are here to bring up the season a notch or two. This episode, New Leaf, in particular, really fleshed out Plankton in ways we haven't seen before. To me, it was kind of similar to the idea of the fun episode from Season 1, but it was more interesting plot-wise since it really doubled down on Plankton changing himself and showed a nastier side of Mr. Krabs. Deception is plentiful in this episode, and it really made for an engaging experience overall. And with the other great episodes like The Lost Mattress and bad episodes like Funny Pants, I gotta place this season firmly in the middle of B tier since it's got a lot that's really good and a lot that's really bad. Season 5 came out from 2007 to 2009 and flopped a lot more than Season 4 in my opinion. While I think it's kind of overhated on at the same time, it's more justified since Spy Buddies is the only S-tier episode we got all season. The rest of it averages C-tier, and though there are lots of episodes that I enjoy rewatching, like Goo Goo Gas and Roller Cowards, the jokes in them just aren't as tight and feel less charming. Even so, episodes like Friend or Foe add a lot of fun lore, so I appreciate that it's there. But it's not that great on the rewatch since this season is where gross out humor started getting dialed up, and unfortunately, this episode is no exception. Seriously, pick any episode at random in Season 5, and I guarantee it'll have at least one gross scene. But that said, outside of the gross out moments, it generally has a more muted animation style compared to both the seasons before and after it, and that in particular resonates a lot with me personally. Beyond animation, character-wise, SpongeBob went down several notches this season since it's here that his crying is at its series peak, and he often began acting creepily enamored with Squidward. It's crystal clear the show was struggling a lot writing-wise with Season 5, and they tried to compensate by having tons of specials. But honestly, Pest of the West, Atlantis SquarePants, and whatever happened to SpongeBob were all passable at best to me, since they shared the same weakness of not having enough jokes to fill out the extended runtime. But even with all its mediocrity, Season 5's bulk is quite enjoyable to watch overall. The Two Faces of Squidward, Money Talks, Les Big Sweets. While none of these are amazing episodes, they're a good time, and I don't regret having watched and rewatched them. Season 5 places in low C tier. Season 6 is highly engaging since it takes on such a range of styles. People act like this season sucks, but man, episodes like House Fancy and Not Normal are so distinctively entertaining and great, I think. House Fancy has a lot in common with fan favorite episode Band Geeks, since they're both about Squidward's struggle with Squilliam, his ex-classmate, and ends with a satisfying Squidward victory, making it one of the best episodes in the season. And then Not Normal is an episode I have a lot of appreciation for since it successfully sent the message that being weird can actually be a positive thing. I think it felt way more genuine than many "be true to yourself" messages, since it showed how SpongeBob was still going to be looked down on for acting strange, and that being yourself often means people may dislike you, but that that's okay, and that you'll also be able to get closer to people since they're able to see your true self straight out the gate. The genuineness with which it observes the social complexities of being odd was so unexpected yet meaningful. But beyond those two episodes, let's be real, we're mostly looking at B and D tier episodes with F and C tier episodes mixed in here and there. It's really not a good sign when several episodes have to arm wrestle for last place. Overall, Season 6 barely trumps Season 5 since the highs were higher, but the lows being lower holds it back a ton, making it place also in middle C tier. Season 7 jumps between extremes in its quality. It's basically always either trash F-tier SpongeBob or solid B-tier SpongeBob. So, understandably, because of the inconsistency, it's usually one of the lowest rated seasons by people. Me personally, I think that B-tier episodes like Krusty Dogs, Wreck of the Mauna Loa, and The Inside Job are a lot of fun. And the two A-tier episodes, Cracked Crabs and Enchanted Tiki Dreams, are SpongeBob classics. But fun episodes like these are not very plentiful, and what really brings this season down is how much filler there is. It felt like so many of the episodes were just awful and uninspired. I hated the Legends of Bikini Bottom series and episodes like Welk Attack and A Pal for Gary since they're frequently just unpleasant to have on screen. These episodes tried so hard to be interesting by upping the stakes, but did so by replacing jokes with enemies that lacked nuance or memorability. The season lacks creative innovation, and it feels almost AI generated. It's as if the writers were following a formula to the writing rather than truly crafting something special with the soul and wit we've come to expect from SpongeBob. This made half of the episodes feel like they were written on autopilot, and the other half feeling overly desperate to be interesting. Overall, while Season 7 has a few standout moments, and though I personally like it at the end of the day, the overwhelming amount of filler and lackluster writing placed this season down in high D tier. Season 8 improved on Season 7 in several different ways. Overall, Season 8's humor saw an improvement, with Drive-Thru standing out as the funniest episode. It felt like the writers had found a new comedic rhythm, where the episode was built around the jokes rather than the jokes being forced into the episode. Season 8 also delivered stronger action, with Frozen Face-Off, for example, easily surpassing anything from Season 7. I really slept on this one as a kid, but let me tell you, it's way more engaging than you'd expect. And then you got other episodes like Squiditis, Accidents Will Happen, Sweet and Sour Squid that really bump up the whole season with their distinct charm and quotability. All those strengths acknowledged, though, I gotta admit that the majority of the season is made up of forgettable C and D tier episodes. And even though they have a better batting average than the worst of Season 7, who the heck really cares about which mediocre collection of episodes is better than the other? Not that I don't love both seasons, because I absolutely do, but I'm just saying the show fell off. Season 8, oddly enough, seems like it had lots of great ideas for episodes, but other than the episodes that I highlighted, the majority of Season 8 really struggled with execution, similar to Season 6 and 7. Season 8 places in the top of C tier. Season 9 changed up the game for SpongeBob. It felt like the past several seasons of SpongeBob had generally been declining, but with Season 8 picking up quality a bit over Season 7, I think it gave the writers enough confidence to try new things. And it was a mixed bag. This is the second biggest transition season in all of SpongeBob, and it's definitely one of those you either love it or hate it kind of situations. I find that I like the increased screen size and energy, but dislike the humor since it felt like the show had funny situations without good dialogue. A good example of this is Eek and Urchin. This episode has Plankton dress up as a lady urchin to lure an urchin out of the Krusty Krab kitchen. It's a funny situation, but the dialogue itself doesn't elevate it, which I felt was a missed opportunity. This is a trend that we see throughout Season 9, and for that reason I think that the season is overrated despite trying out new things. Season 9 places bottom of C tier. Season 10 is the shortest in the series, largely because the team was focused on making a movie at the time. This makes it harder to judge the season as a whole, as it feels more like a collection of ideas rather than a fully developed chapter of the show. The standout episodes to me include Life Insurance, Mimic Madness, and Feral Friends. I found Feral Friends to be particularly interesting, since it has a creative plot about the characters temporarily devolving into their primal sea creature forms. And Mimic Madness I felt served as a cool spiritual successor to that Season 6 episode, Gone. Where Season 10 falls short, though, is in its writing. Much like Season 9, there's generally quality in the premise, but not the execution. For every clever joke in this season, Patrick shakes his butt at the camera 10 times. This doesn't seem like an intentional shift towards a younger audience or something, but rather just poor writing and execution. While the plots themselves are engaging, the bland dialogue leaves this season feeling hollow. Season 10 places in middle D tier. Season 11 put more of its focus on humor than Season 10 did, and I think it helped the season out a lot. Scavenger Pants has gotta be not just the funniest episode of this season, but the past few. The premise is that Squidward wants space from SpongeBob and Patrick, so he sends them off on impossible scavenger hunts. The best moment is when Squidward sends them off to find his long-lost brother. They end up concluding he has no brother, but they still complete the quest on a technicality by going to Squidward's mother and convincing her to legally adopt them. It was absolutely hilarious and deserves recognition for its creativity and solid execution. This episode and Squidnor are the peak of the season in my opinion, but despite having some gems sprinkled in, the humor in most other episodes prioritize randomness over clever writing, leading to episodes that feel frantic but empty. The whole season never slows down, never lets jokes breathe, and rarely delivers a satisfying story. For every Scavenger Pants, there are 3 piles of half-baked, empty nonsense episodes that are more exhausting than entertaining. Overall, Season 11 falls in upper C tier. Season 12 just ain't a great season, but let me give credit where it's due. Episodes like the Krusty Slammer, the Krusty Bucket, and the underrated Pineapple RV have an awesome sense of adventure that make them stand out. And the fact that Season 12 has nailed physical comedy humor, you end up with a solid C-tier time on your hands. But then there's the rest of the season, and oh boy, it's rough. Episodes like The Nitwitting, Jolly Lodgers, and SpongeBob's Bad Habit are black holes of entertainment that are totally reliant on dumbed down, lazy humor. Ladies and gentlemen, the writing here feels like the team put their scripts through a randomizer and called it a day. No setup, no payoff, just loud noises and nonsense. Patrick is no longer just dumb, instead he is aggressively brain dead. And while it's nice that they moved past his mean-spirited jerk phase from seasons 4 to 8, they overcorrected so hard that he now functions at the intellectual level of his rock home. What sucks is the issues of Patrick are a mirror for the problems of the season as a whole. Season 12 had potential, but if you ask me, it just doesn't deliver like some people claim it does. The best episodes are mid, the worst episodes are atrocious, and almost all of the season is a forgettable, meandering mess. It's a low D-tier season that survives only because of a little bit of creativity shining through here and there. Season 13 is what happens when you run out of ideas, but keep making episodes anyway. I want to be nice here, I really do, but this season is an absolute dumpster fire. Yeah, there are a couple of decent episodes like the flower plot and swimming pools, but let's be real, when the best thing you can say about a season is a couple episodes don't suck, you know it's in trouble. Let's take a look at Walhalla, since this episode is the perfect example of why this season fails so hard. The premise is that some dude has been living in SpongeBob's walls this whole time. And that's it. There's no clever twists, no deeper exploration of this idea, just, hey, what if a guy was in the walls? This whole season has this disconnect where the initial idea isn't expanded upon properly. It's just SpongeBob doing things while the audience stares, wondering when it'll get funny. I wanted to love this season. As a SpongeBob fanatic, I genuinely did. But after sitting through episode after episode of uninspired, directionless nonsense, I've given up. The best episodes of Season 13 barely scrape into C tier, and the worst redefine F tier. This is without a doubt one of the most creatively bankrupt seasons in SpongeBob history. Bottom of F tier. Season 14 is much more of the same, but this time not just quality-wise, but plot-wise. It feels like half the season is nostalgia bait, with episodes like Squiddiot Box and PL 1413 just being recycled plots. It's self-celebratory in a negative way, and the characters somehow feel even more one-note than in seasons prior. My thing is, if Season 14 wanted to be early seasons so badly, why not copy the style of humor and dialogue instead? While there are a few passable episodes in this season, like Single Cell Defense, they're few and far between. Overall, Season 14 is far from the show's peak. It gives Season 13 company an F tier. Ladies and gentlemen, our newest season, Season 15, overall feels like an improvement over both Seasons 13 and 14. On one hand, it's true that the episodes have similar issues writing-wise, but it's also true that each episode has a more individualistic identity to it. For Season 15's review, rather than restating the same criticisms that I did for 13 and 14, since it often shares them, I'd rather focus on what's different from other modern seasons, since it's actually generally improved. The peak of the season so far to me is Wiener Takes All. It explores the idea of if Squidward quit his job at the Krusty Krab to work at Weenie Hut Jr.'s, and it has a cool plot twist where they end up trying to forcibly make him a cyborg. And my second favorite episode is Squidness Protection, since it's a lot of fun too. A recurring thing that's great though about Season 15 is the animation style, since it feels a little more muted than Seasons 11 through 14, making it feel less desperate to be funny and more patient. Make no mistake, the season is only really good in a comparative sense rather than an objective sense, but it makes me happy to see the show going in a more positive direction. Season 15 places in high D tier. Yay, now it's time for generic YouTube into video stuff. Smash the EV, subscribe to Interpretive Dance Quarterly for all your interpretive dance subscribing needs. Thank you all for the log with a llama tied to it, and click here to see the worst episodes of each season, cause man, it gets so unhinged as it goes on. Thank you, bye.